Weddings in the Mountains with Pastor Jody Secor as your host. This is your go-to podcast for all things romantic and enchanting in the Great Smoky Mountains. Whether you're dreaming of a cozy, intimate elopement or a grand, breathtaking ceremony with a mountain view, we are here to guide you through the best venues, vendors, and secrets of wedding planning in East Tennessee. Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and let's explore the magic that awaits amidst the misty peaks. Remember, the Great Smoky Mountains are not just a backdrop. They're a part of your love story. Thank you for tuning in to Weddings in the Mountains. We hope you're feeling inspired and excited for your journey to saying I do in the heart of the mountains. Now here is the next exciting episode.
Alrighty. Welcome to Weddings in the Mountains, folks. We are here with another great episode. Hopefully some great advice for everybody. Another opportunity to meet another amazing vendor in this area. And today we have one of the best photographers in this area joining me today. She is someone that I have worked with many times now over the years. And it is always a joy to work with Melanie. But before we get to that, let me just say real quick, as we do a little business here, I want you to know that this podcast is sponsored by the Smoky Mountain Wedding Directory. And if you're dreaming of getting married here in the Smokies, well, let me make it easier for you. The Smoky Mountain Wedding Directory connects you with trusted local venues and vendors who know how to make mountain weddings simple, beautiful, and stress-free. So start planning the right way at SmokyMountainWeddingDirectory.com. All right, great. Now with that out of the way, let's move on here and let me bring Miss Melanie on. Miss Melanie is with. Hey, Melanie, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's great to have you with me here this morning. Melanie is with TLT Company, Tennessee. She, like I said, is an amazing photographer in this area, somebody that I always enjoy working with. And today we're going to let her share a little bit about herself and who she is. I'm going to hit her with some questions that hopefully will bring some things out that will make you want to give Melanie a call and get her on your team, because I can guarantee you won't be disappointed if you do. So I've had nothing but, any of my couples speak highly. In fact, I just booked a couple the other day that, they said, who is this Melanie person? I've seen her work and it just looks, it's what we want. It's the vibe we're after. So I called Melanie and unfortunately she was available. So we've made that connection and we've got her on the calendar for that one coming up. But anyhow, Melanie, good to have you here this morning. Tell me, how did you get started? How did you get started doing photos here in the Smokies?
Well, I was born and raised in Florida and grew up coming to the Smoky Mountains all the time as a kid, every single summer, a couple winters, absolutely fell in love with the mountains. And then about 2019, my husband and I decided we were going to move up here, be able to raise our kids in the mountains, let them have freedom and have fun. And it just seemed like the most natural thing to do was to transition my business from Florida up to Tennessee. And I couldn't ask for more. It's been amazing. It's been wonderful. And I absolutely love everything that I do.
So I take it you haven't looked back.
No, not at all.
Not for a moment.
No.
Hey, what a great place to raise kids too. I mean, these mountains are just absolutely amazing. It's been great in my life. I got to say, I've enjoyed every moment I've ever been here as well. So with that in mind, thinking about that, so what's unique about photographing weddings here in the mountains compared to, what you did down in Florida?
Well, I guess I have to say Florida, we had the beach. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. But aside from the beach scenery, there really wasn't a whole lot. It was just city. So you either had the beach or you had the city, or you might have had the venue that you were out at, but it wasn't this, that was it. There was no real other options. And I think I love Tennessee because you don't have just the mountains. You don't have just the city if you wanted to. You have streams, you've got rivers, you've got meadows and valleys. You've got so many different things. You've got the forest that you can go right into the middle of the forest and get these like magical pictures. They're just something that you'd put on your wall and save for the rest of your life. So
Yeah, I think you're right. The diversity here for backdrops and settings and so forth. And I think that's one of the reasons so many people come here. This is such a destination area is because of the diversity and the beauty. But
Right.
yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, Florida, you either got the beach. Of course, if I didn't live in the mountains, I would probably be a beach bum. But um,
Yeah.
you know, but when it comes to photography and memories, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So tell me, when it comes to weather, what advice do you give couples who might be nervous about fog, rain, changing conditions? Because we know that can happen pretty quick here in these mountains.
Yes, it would. I would let every client know. Yeah, it does change insanely fast. If you look out pretty much 2 days past in the weather forecast, it's going to be different. You could go to bed and it's 60 degrees, and you could wake up and it's 15 degrees. It's just, unfortunately, the weather is insanely unpredictable.
For
However,
sure.
have a beautiful jacket that you can wear, or a beautiful fur coat or something like that. And then when it comes to rain, I love giving my clients those clear umbrellas.
Oh
It
yeah,
makes for epic shots. It makes for really, really pretty shots. And don't be afraid of the fog either, because the fog can make for incredible photos. It just adds depth and texture to your photo. I love shooting in the fog. It's one of my favorite.
oh I know. And up on the Foothills Parkway,
Yeah.
it has been some of the most amazing, I guess what you would call a fog backdrop that
Yeah.
that the experience up there, especially right after a rain.
Yep.
It's just the whole dynamic is like you said. It's just absolutely gorgeous. It has its advantages.
Right. And
So
I would say don't fear the fog either, because even if it's like fogged out and you don't see the mountains, give it about 5-10 minutes. We're going to see mountains. So you're going to have a mix of
yeah,
fog and mountains, and it's going to be stunning. So,
there you go. Yeah, definitely. I've experienced that as well. You're right. You're right. Just give it a few minutes. So as far as lighting goes, because I know with photography, lighting is such a big thing. What here in the Smokies, how do you deal with that? What's the best time of day for photos and different things? Because I know a lot of times, depending on what side of the ridge that you're on, as to how do you deal with sunset and then different times of the day that to get what people might be after.
um, I've learned to shoot in a lot of lighting different situations. While my favorite lighting is either sunrise or sunset, because it just has that absolute gorgeous glow to it and things like that. Um, the fact of the matter is we can't always have that. You might have no choice but to get married at 12 or 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun can be harsh. It can be popping in and out of the clouds, but as a professional photographer, that's what we learn to do. We learn to adapt. We learn to constantly change our settings, so that we can always get you the best photos that we possibly can for you. We just learn to
Yeah,
adapt and change things.
which is why it's so important to connect yourself with a real photographer here in this area, because I know there are so many photographers running around here that they're kids that have just bought these cameras and at Walmart, and now they call themselves a photographer. And there is so much more to it than that. Having somebody like yourself that is a trained professional that understands all those different settings and everything, the results are so. And I think that's one of the reasons that people really desire the work that you do, because your results are so amazing.
Oh,
Any
thank
couple
you.
that I've ever dealt with, I've never had anybody disappointed in the work you've provided. It's always been amazing. But and then thinking of that a little bit, when it does come to locations, and I know you don't always have control over this, but
Right,
because a lot of times, people have already got the location picked out by the time they either call me as an officiant or they
right.
call you as a photographer. They've already decided where they're going to have this happen at. But if they haven't made that decision, what kind of an advice, or what do you do to help give them direction on picking out a location around here?
I typically talk to my clients. I get a feel for what it is that they're going for. I also ask them, how many people are they going to have? Certain locations are not good for a lot of people. Certain locations are great for having an abundance of people. While we do a lot of elopements don't necessarily mean just the couple. It means the couple and their kids. It means the couple and 30 other people, because that's the way they've
I think the
chosen to.
definition of elopement has changed.
It really has. It really has. But I kind of get to know them. I kind of get to know what their likes, their dislikes are. Find out how many people they're having. See if they have any family members that might have walking restrictions. If they want to be more adventurous, then we'll go and adventure out into the woods more. If not so much, and they just want to be able to like walk somewhere, then we've got some great locations that we just set aside for specifically that.
And oftentimes I know that you don't always do all your photos just at one location either. So sometimes I know, you guys, will take a couple, and go to like, maybe a couple of different locations, beyond just where the ceremony took place.
Yeah.
For, different settings and backdrops. And you bring up something that it really is kind of important to think about is, can grandma, because there really isn't very many flat places in this neighborhood.
Right.
And, hiking and walking and things, they are considerations that you bring up a good point about that, can grandma or grandpa, can they deal with the terrain? If this is a place that we're going to be able to get them in the pictures, or are we going to have to go someplace else?
Exactly.
So yeah, that's interesting. Well, next question here. Tell me something that couples will often overlook when they're planning a mountain wedding. And what makes a mountain wedding different?
A mountain wedding, let's see here. I think so many people are just used to doing weddings at a venue, or maybe since moving up here, I've gotten to do a lot of absolutely beautiful backyard weddings. People are just used to your standard wedding type. Going into the mountains is completely different. It's, you've got to drive there. I don't think a lot of people realize, they understand that Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge and those types of areas, they're busy, but they don't understand how busy or the traffic. And so I think a lot of couples, they get caught up. Oh no, I'm running late because of the traffic. I didn't expect it to be this crazy, and things like that. And then I also think, I don't think people realize, at least in the summer, and I know it sounds funny, but the bugs. Bugs in the summertime, people don't realize. And, you have to remind them, you're outside. There are going to be bugs. I think I find, especially when the Asian lady beetles and stuff are out, I find that they actually make for really pretty photos, just because they're just, I don't know, it just kind of seems whimsical. But a lot of people don't think about the bugs, and they're kind of caught off guard by that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cabin weddings. I know, a lot of people, they choose their cabins for settings. And you think about it, years ago, weddings, like you said, they basically were in some kind of a, local hall, or, a church, the wedding in churches, Now, I know a lot of the churches around here really don't let guests come in and utilize the churches. And I get that, because what I know and learned, what has happened over the years is, people will come in town, and of course they're going to have their wedding on Saturday night, and they rearrange the entire church for the wedding. Well, guess what? They never put it back for Sunday morning. And so, a lot of the churches have gotten to the point that they just don't open their doors unless you're actually a member of that church. And that makes sense.
Right.
But, cabin weddings. How does, what's your experience with cabin weddings versus just standing out on the side of a mountain?
I love cabin weddings. Occasionally they can be a bit of a challenge, especially when you get these really, really small cabins. I think the most important thing, again, if you're hiring a photographer, is to make sure, especially if it's in like a cabin, if you've asked them for a portfolio or pictures that they've done at a cabin, because a lot of these cabins can be very dark. And if they don't know lighting, your pictures aren't going to turn out. You're not going to be happy. You're not going to have these beautiful memories to have for the rest of your life. You're really going to want to make sure that they are well-versed on shooting inside dark areas.
Definitely. I've seen that quite often. You're standing out on the back deck and the light and the sun and everything, behind you with
Exactly.
those mountains is so bright.
Yep.
It, because I usually always take a picture, of the couples that I marry with my phone, just so that I've got record and, it gives me something to post and, congratulate them and
Right.
so forth. And I know I've ran into that, just with my phone, which I'm sure is not as good as the equipment that you use. And maybe I'm just setting my phone wrong. Maybe I need to learn something from you. But yeah, the people can, that they can be washed out. It's so that's definitely something to think about when you're planning a wedding here in the mountains. And that's some great advice. Talk to your photographer and ask them about lighting and different considerations. Um, other than that, we do have people that are planning from out of state. Oftentimes this is the first time they've ever been here, and then they're
Right.
doing all this planning without ever having been here to begin with. What kind of mistakes do you see couples making when they're planning a wedding? Trying to get to come to this area to be married.
I don't know. Mistakes. Let me think about that. I don't know if I've really come across too many mistakes. Um, I think it's just the lack of knowledge of just how busy it can be, or kind of what to expect. If they're not from here, even finding your way around or finding the right photographer or any type of vendor that is trustworthy and is going to show up and it's going to do a fantastic job. So really research each vendor that you use. And I guess get recommendations, referrals from other people that have actually used that vendor, because it's really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And one thing that amazes me is, and I think this may be one of the things that people need to do a little better when they're researching and things and so forth, is make a phone call and actually talk to the vendor. It amazes
Yes.
me how many couples I book that it's just all done with email. Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually don't, talk to them until the day that I show up for the ceremony.
Right.
And that just kind of, that's not the way that I would have probably, done things, if I was in the situation. To me, to call and, ask questions, I mean, what are some of the questions that people should ask you that they don't?
Um, I think sometimes technical questions, and of course they're not going to have the thought to do that. But this is why we have the podcast, and I think it's fantastic because they're going to learn exactly what they should be asking their vendors, or for me,
We
their
hope.
photographer.
Definitely.
Things, as simple as, what kind of camera do you use? Does it have two card slots? Because if you have these starter cameras, and I'm not going to knock the starter photographers because I started somewhere, right? We all start somewhere, and that's fantastic. But a wedding is not something that you can replicate. It's the day, it's the one and only time. And so the photographer's got to be able to get those shots. And if your one card might fail, your one SD card might fail, you want to make sure that there's a backup on that camera so that you still have your images.
Oh,
Um,
no doubt. Yeah. Have you
and
ever had a wedding that you get to the end of it and there's no pictures?
thank God I have not. I say thank you, Lord, every single day for that, because but I have multiple cameras that have the two card slots, and so thankfully I haven't run into that. But I have known plenty of people that have, because they want to jump into weddings, they want to jump into incredibly important events in people's lives, but they don't necessarily have the equipment to do so. And I'm always warning them, like, hey, just be careful, because this is a one-time thing and you can't replicate it. So make sure you're doing it right by these people. You really want
Yeah,
to.
yeah. You're never going to recreate that moment. You're right.
Exactly.
That's an important, that's an important piece of advice right there. I hadn't
Yeah,
even thought about, yeah, your equipment is so much different than what you're going to get at Walmart. That's for sure.
it really
Uh,
is. And also, are you only a natural light photographer, or do you use flash? That's incredibly important, because um, it's going to determine on, how your photos turn out. It really is. I mean, I know a lot of great natural light photographers, they don't touch flashes, but I think it's still good because, like we said, cabins, you have to be able to do that,
Sure.
instead of just showing up and hoping for the best kind of thing.
So let me ask you, here's kind of just a little bit of a side note because it kind of caught me off guard here not long ago. I actually ran into a photographer that's still shooting film. Did you ever shoot film back in the day?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to feel kind of old right now. um, in high school, actually, that's how I learned, and that's kind of like what gave me a passion for photography. Is I had a 35 millimeter Canon camera. We learned how to take pictures, how to process it in a dark room, and all of that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've touched a film camera, and I hear that they're coming back, which gives me the itch to get one. It
Oh,
sounds exciting.
interesting.
It sounds like it would be absolutely so much fun. And it does. It makes you take time, because we can, as digital photographers, we can shoot 100 photos in a matter of 10 minutes, and we can just delete anything we want. But a film, you have to be very intentional about.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't believe that the guy was still shooting film. I hadn't heard that in so many years that it did. It kind of really caught me off guard. I was like, dude,
Yeah,
how do you do this?
it's becoming a big thing. People want, they want the typical digital photography like what we do, but they also want to incorporate film because it really does. It gives a different feel that you cannot accomplish in post processing. You can't with a digital camera.
So do you have other people that work with you on occasion? Are there times that you have what's called a second shooter that maybe shooting film while you're doing digital or what have you? And
I
what about
do.
video? Do you do that as well?
I do video. I don't do as much of it as I do photography. I do love doing video. But I do have a couple second shooters. I have one in particular that I work with all the time. Absolutely love her. Hi, Faith. If you see this, um, she's a doll, and we work really well together. And it just helps when you're working with second shooters to have a good chemistry because it's going to come out in the final product for your clients. But yeah, she's always shooting for me, or she's doing video for me, things like that.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I'm sure being able to get along with each other would be important. So so when it comes to the photos, what do you do maybe different than anybody else? What do you do to help couples feel comfortable, so that you get the natural people? And I know this is one reason I like doing cabin weddings a lot over the venues, because when you get to the cabin, people are more themselves, they're not all
Right,
stressed out over all the venue perfection, that's expected or whatever. But what do you
right.
do that helps people feel comfortable and natural in front of the camera? What if you are outdoors?
Um, I try to be authentically myself. I try to make light of, I've done things where I've picked up my camera accidentally upside down, and I tease. I'm like, they say I'm a professional photographer, but hey, I'm here, right? I try to make light and be fun, and just help my clients through, explain kind of like, what they should be doing and stuff like that, guiding them, giving them direction so that they don't have to be awkward in front of the camera. I do a lot of, instead of post necessarily, I like to do prompted. So, hey, nibble her ear or whisper sweet nothings into her ear, silly things like that. And it always gets a really great laugh and some great smiles and natural, beautiful photos. So,
Yeah, and I'm sure that's got to kind of break the nerves and get them, feeling more comfortable is just getting them doing crazy, silly things. That makes
right.
sense. So now I know with photographers, everybody kind of has their own vibe, their own things that they look for, or are there certain things that you look for in a session, during a ceremony? Are there certain instances that you always try to capture that other people may not? Is there certain things that you go for that makes you kind of unique or specific?
I don't know if it makes me unique or specific, but I always like to make sure that if the guy is tearing up, I get those shots. Even if the bride is tearing up, I really try to get a good emotional shot for them. Because you get so wrapped up and you get so caught up trying to, repeat what you guys are saying, with the officiant saying and stuff like that. You kind of forget about all of the things that went on. I mean, at least I know for my wedding, it was just a blur. And so getting those actual emotional shots, the shots where they were showing their true emotions, is really important for me. Or getting shots if they happen to have like little ones or something like that. Getting just candid shots of them, because it's something that they're going to look back on and go, oh my gosh, like I didn't even realize, or stuff like that. But
yeah, and I think that's something that because I know over the years, couples think that, oh my gosh, I can't cry during this, I can't show my emotions. But
yeah,
the thing about it though is that if they will just let that go, if they will just be who they are and let that flow, it really does have an effect on the pictures.
it does.
You
It
know,
looks more natural.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I always tell my couples, look, let it flow. If you're going to get emotional, just run with it. Don't worry. We're not here to put out fires. We're here to, make this moment special for you. It's let's have 5 minutes of tears if we need to. It's no big
Exactly.
deal.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
so tell me about a wedding that you've done in this area that you will never forget, and why.
um, there's so many of them, but I did
Oh my
one.
God.
Well, I love every single one of my weddings. I love, especially when the couples are just willing to cut loose and be themselves and have fun. But we had one. I had one this spring. And this dog just showed up. He just showed up, and he insisted on being part of all of their photos.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and it was funny. He just was having no part of anything but being in their photos. So they have all of these photos with this dog that wasn't theirs in it. And long story short, found the owner finally, returned it. And I had to joke because the dog's name was Trump. And I said, "You guys have to
No.
have photos with Trump in it. Aren't you famous?" And they just laughed. They had a good time with it or whatever. But I think that one
At
was
least
that
they
one was
rolled
pretty
with it.
funny. Yeah, they rolled with it. They had a blast. But yeah, that was one that really sticks out in my mind.
Well, at least it wasn't a bear.
Yeah, we've had those.
Yeah, I've done many weddings. Yeah, you're in the middle of the ceremony, and here comes Mr. Bear walking through,
Yeah,
because of course, all the food's being cooked and everything, and it's of course attracting them, and they smell that, and they're coming for dinner. But it creates quite an exciting time.
yeah.
So what is probably one of the most surprising things that you've ever captured at a wedding in this area?
Surprising. Well, quite possibly the Bears. We had a wedding in Cades Cove, and here comes Mama Bear with her 3 cubs. Yeah, just taking over and showing off during the wedding. So I think that might have been one of the most surprising things or unexpected things. So
No, did you get shots of the family to include in their photo package for them, or?
I tried. They were a little far off, but
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Wow, cool. So give me something that if a couple's only going to remember one piece of advice for planning a wedding in this area, what would that piece of advice be?
Be fluid. Be fluid. Because one thing I've learned about being up here in Tennessee, and especially the Smoky Mountains, is you never know what the traffic is going to be like, and you never know what the weather is going to be like. So be fluid. Be willing to adjust even your location if we had to, or the time of day of your ceremony, something like that. Just be fluid and just go with it. Go with it. Have fun with it. It's still going to be a beautiful wedding. It's still going to be a beautiful ceremony. You're still going to get gorgeous photos. But yeah, just be fluid.
That's great advice. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, definitely, especially in this area because traffic can really become an issue, and depending on what's going on.
Right.
Sometimes we have events going on in this area that will just saturate the place with traffic.
Yes.
Other
Yes.
times, it's not so bad, but anymore, it seems like that there's always on the weekends, there's always more traffic than normal anymore that this place is growing so much. But
Yeah.
so plan a little extra time on your driving and so forth. Check that GPS and see what it's telling you as far as what your drive time is going to be and things. That's yeah, definitely fluid. I like that word. That makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. So when it comes to photos, what kind of a detail makes a big difference in a photo? If you had to pick out some kind of detail that would make a huge difference, what's something to think
Um,
about?
hmm. I guess just doing a once over on your clothing, just making sure your shirt's tucked in, or your tie is put on right, that your veil is set right, those sorts of things, little things like that, that you don't have stuff in your pockets. The guys, they always inevitably have something in their front pocket, and it just really distracts from what would have been an absolutely stunning photo. Um, and I'm going to be a little whiny here, but I cannot stand having to edit all that out. While we can, we don't want to. And
Right,
so
right. I hear you.
it's always a reminder, okay, guys, take it all out, just put it somewhere else. You don't need your phone, you don't need your wallet, you don't need these things. Give it to a friend and know that they're going to take care of it for you. Because it really does. You can have a gorgeous photo, but then you've got these like funky lumps and bumps, or their shirts just slightly untucked and things like that. So just your presentation, making sure that you're kind of dress for those photos.
Okay, we lost your audio there for a minute.
You back?
Now you're back. Okay, so finish that statement right there. The last part of that cut off.
Oh, I was just saying, just make sure that you're kind of dress, just making sure that you've done a once over, making
Yeah.
sure your shirt's tucked in, your tie is done right, that sort of stuff, because it really does make a huge difference in what the photo looks like after.
And one thing that I know that I catch oftentimes at weddings, because a lot of times when a guy shows up, he just bought a suit for this event, and it's the first time he's ever worn it.
Yes.
And most people don't realize that the
And
back of those
stitches on
suits,
the back.
that they stitch those things together back there for, when it's being shipped or whatever.
Right.
And you cut those stitches out so the back of that suit opens up and flows like it's supposed to. And it does.
Yes.
It really kind of makes for the way that suit, fits at that point. It's really
Right.
kind of weird. But if you just remember to, cut those stitches out, that's just one example that I can think of off the top of my head that I've experienced quite a bit.
Yeah. And I will say for the brides, because Tennessee can be very humid. And I know a lot of brides, they want these beautiful long down do's and things like that. If it's the summertime and it's going to be warm, find a way to do an updo, because every single time it falls, their hair falls, and then they're not happy because they don't have the beautiful curls that they did when they left the cabin, or they're wherever they're staying, things like that. Just do an updo, and you'll be much happier with your photos.
So that kind of begins to answer kind of the next question really that I had is, what can couples do to prepare themselves to get the most out of their photo session? And maybe that's just relative to them, or maybe that's relative to, like you say, sometimes you've got a group of people, you've got family involved or what have you.
Right.
What are some things that couples can do to be prepared to get a good photo experience?
Right. The first one, it's kind of, we talked about it. Just be yourselves. Don't feel, just relax. relax and have fun with it. So oftentimes the guys, they don't want it, so they don't want to be there. And you can see that in the photos. And I know it's hard for guys. It's like really the last thing a lot of guys want to do is have their picture taken. But I promise you, if you can just relax for an hour, maybe hour and a half, it really makes a world of difference on the photos. And then giving me a shoot list or giving your vendors, your photographers a shoot list is super, super, super important, especially if you've chosen to only do, say, like an hour of photos, but you've got 30 people. So that's the ceremony, and it's photographing your friends and family with you guys. And then it's also still trying to get in time where you're not feeling rushed to also do your photos. So giving a shoot list helps to just kind of be able to knock every single one of those photos off the list. So whether it's bridegroom, grandma and grandpa, bridegroom, mom and dad, we can read down that list and we can get through those so that we have enough time to enjoy and have fun doing the bride and the groom.
Yeah, that makes sense, because there are certain combinations that people want to make sure that they do capture,
Right.
because some of those, family members, they haven't been around, that they may never be around again.
Right.
There's a multitude of reasons, and I get that, and so that's great advice. That a shoot list I can see could really help the session, keep it running smooth, keep everybody in, hopefully in order. And I know sometimes it's like herding cats at some of these photo sessions. But,
yeah.
I know you guys have your challenges when it comes to some of the photo sessions, especially when there are a bunch of people involved. That's got to be a challenge. I'm usually not around for that part of it, but I have been on occasion, but
right.
And it can be kind of entertaining to watch, but I can see where it would be frustrating for you guys.
Right.
So anything else? Is there anything else that you can think of that maybe you might want to share to help couples out and come into this area, planning, what have you? I've got your website on the screen right now. I've got your phone number on there, that if people, so they know how to contact you, if they are looking for a photographer, or, if they do have questions about photography, what have you. Because I know your heart's a lot like mine. Even if people don't book me, I'm still willing to help folks, to have a great experience in this area. So,
exactly.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share that we haven't talked about that you think might be important for couples?
Just remember that if you're coming to the area from out of the area, you're doing it because you want an experience. So go with it. Just have fun with it. Don't get caught up in all of the minutia, because I promise you, in the long run, you're not going to remember all of the little stuff that didn't matter. You're going to want to remember the big details. And I'm not trying to sell myself or anything like that, because whether you go with me or you went with another photographer, invest in the photographer. I know it can kind of sound like a lot of money, but between the ceremony and your photographer, those are the things that you're going to remember. You're not going to remember all of the little details of the wedding. You're going to have what you have in photos, and you're going to want beautiful photos to remember that by. I've seen way too many brides. I'm sorry?
I said, and that's where your memories lie. They're in the photos. That's what you're going to have to look at, 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now.
Exactly. And it breaks my heart, because so often I see, on all of these Facebook pages, these wedding pages and stuff like that, these brides, they thought they could do more with their wedding by going cheap on, say, the photographer, the videographer, or whatever. And then they're left brokenhearted because their photos are just not what they should be for such a big event. And then that's what they have for the rest of their lives, is these just kind of photos that fall flat.
Yeah, definitely. If you're working on a budget, that's definitely one area that I don't recommend that you cut the budget on, because the photography is that long lasting memory. Maybe instead of having steak, scale back to chicken. Cut your budget someplace else. But yeah, I agree with you that the photography is not an area to cut the budget and try to go cheap, because you are going to get what you pay for. And
Right.
And,
And I will say, if you find a professional photographer and things like that, we typically offer payment plans. So it's not a matter of, okay, you have to pay the retainer and then a big lump sum. We really do try our best to work with clients to make it as affordable as possible.
there you go. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Well, my goodness. We have we've gone through a lot here today, haven't we?
Good.
There's
We
a
did.
lot of great advice. It's because, like I say, I always appreciate working with you. I've always enjoyed my time with you, and I know my couples have always enjoyed the results that they've gotten from you. I've never had anybody complain about your work, and the time that you've spent here, I appreciate it. My goal,
Absolutely.
as well as we're just trying to get some great information out here so where people can come to this area and have that amazing experience, that they're going to
Right.
leave this area with great memories, not the things that just continue to aggravate. So this has been great, Melanie. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. It
So
was a pleasure.
all right. Well, there you go, folks. If you are looking for a photographer for your wedding, like I said, the information is right there on the screen, her website, her phone number. Feel free to reach out to her. That's her cell phone. So you can text her at that number if you feel, more comfortable texting. Start the conversation that way. But if you are in need, hey, give Melanie a call. You will not regret it. I can promise you that.
Thank you.
So with that all being said, this is going to bring us to the end of this episode today. Hopefully we've thrown a few good things out there for everybody to think about. And if not, hey, give us a call. Ask us more questions. We're always here to answer and help.
Yep.
So with that being said, we're going to say goodbye for today. And we're going to be back soon with another great episode. So make sure that you subscribe to this channel, like this video, help us out so that others are able to see all this. And we'll see everybody again soon. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. We'll be back next week with more tips and stories for your perfect mountain wedding, and always with a touch of laughter and love. Until next time, may your hearts be as full as the Smoky Mountain skyline as you prepare your wedding in the mountains.